Jazakallah Minum Saab. Is my voice coming through okay? I want to make sure there's a bit of an echo, but Jazakallah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So I just wanted to share a few reflections on this trip to Turkey. I was reminded of as I was thinking about my remarks, I was reminded of the verse of the Holy Quran from Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, verse 149, where Allah says, "And everyone has a goal which dominates him. Vie then with one another in good works." It's a verse that many of us have heard often, and I'm sure it's not new to you, but it's something that really emanated from my heart as I thought about this trip. The story that I want to share is about two things. One, about relationships and persistence, and two, about how Allah opens doors of service to humanity for those who sincerely seek them for the sake of Allah. My first trip with Humanity First was way back in 2005 when I was finishing up my undergraduate degree. This was when Humanity First sent a team to Louisiana for Hurricane Katrina relief. Many of you remember that. Some of you may have attended as well. And since then, I've been fortunate to travel with Humanity First and do Humanity First work in Mali, supporting in Guatemala, and of course in Turkey. And I can say with sincerity, the 10 days I spent in Turkey were mentally and physically some of the most difficult days of my life that I've ever experienced. Our team was led by Dr. Khalil Malik and Dr. Salahuddin Kurder and myself. And he's a physician in Milwaukee. He's also Turkish, and so it helped to have him there. And we were met with what can only be described as apocalyptic. That's really not an exaggeration. Entire neighborhoods were reduced to rubble, entire buildings were collapsed, entire cities were decimated, all turned to dust. And so our medical team immediately got to work in the most devastating regions of Turkey. We were based in Osmania, which was the outskirts of the actual earthquake, but we traversed back and forth between Kirkikan and Antakya, two cities of 500,000 to 1 million people that had just been leveled. Think about the last action movie you saw about doomsday happening. That's what it felt like. We were joined by teams from Germany and the UK to build 2 medical camps where our physicians treated hundreds of patients a day. Now, as I mentioned, Dr. Kurder is a Milwaukee-based physician who traveled with us. He's Turkish, and in many ways became our interpreter and translator. And this relationship, remember I talked about relationship and persistence, this relationship proved to be extraordinarily vital. Because one of the doors that he ended up opening for us was to a man named Yunus, who was his brother-in-law. And Yunus was a known leader in the Red Crescent, that's the Turkish equivalent of the Red Cross, and he had lived through the most devastating part of the earthquake. He was awakened at 3, 4 in the morning when the first earthquakes hit, and got his family out of their high-rise and got them to safety. And he had spent the last week since we arrived constantly awake, sleeping 20 minutes here, 15 minutes there, helping pull people out of the rubble, helping getting people to safety. And you could see just a look of exhaustion and devastation on his face. Now through Yunus, Dr. Malik, Dr. Kurder, and I had the opportunity to meet local government leaders, leaders of the Red Crescent, and even military leaders. And our offer to them was to provide medical support through the world-class physicians that Humanity First could bring to the table. But each time we made that offer of service, we were met with an obstacle. The Turkish government simply did not want outside physicians working on their internal matters. And so they relegated us, despite the dire need, to only work through external clinics. They said it was not possible for us to be registered and certified to work internally. And they had the reasons for that, but nonetheless, despite our efforts, meeting after meeting led to a dead end in our attempts to maximize the support and service that we wanted to offer to the people of Turkey. And I remember we were going back and forth with Naim Saab and with Humanity First UK and Germany to figure out how do we get our foot in the door. But that work ultimately laid the foundation for what would prove to be one of the most unexpected and consequential events of the trip. In the final few days, after we had been exhausted, both from our efforts of providing support, our travel back and forth, and our meetings to try to get access to the hospitals, we were able to have Majib Ijaz join us as well. And the relationships we built over the last week ended up fusing with Mujib Bhai's newfound resilience and energy. For those who have met Mujib Bhai, one thing that he doesn't lack is energy, which is great when you're the CEO of an energy company too. But his bigger fused with the relationships that we'd built up and the work we'd put in really led to this remarkable transformation of Allah opening doors that we hadn't previously contemplated. When it became clear that we would not be able to get into the hospitals to provide more intense medical support, Mujib Bhai's focus shifted, and all of ours did too, that what is the project then we can accomplish? What is within our grasp that Humanity First can offer to the people of Turkey? And this phrase, we need a project, began to resonate through each of our minds. And that phrase drove our work. We met once more with Red Crescent leaders, we met with military leaders, and even UN representatives, but still it was unclear what we could do. And then, when something really unexpected happened, through our relationship with Yunus and Mujib Bhai's relationships with leaders in Turkey, we managed to learn that Turkey's foreign minister, second in command behind Prime Minister Erdogan, a man named Mevlut Cavusoglu, was in the region. And we thought, let's just make the ask. We asked Yunus, is there a way we can get a meeting with the foreign minister? And much to our surprise, he said, let me see what I can do. And so he started calling his contacts at the Red Crescent to figure out where this caravan was. Now, I wasn't particularly excited about us trying to track down the heavily armed caravan of the foreign minister of Turkey, but Yunus felt confident about it, so we went with it. And so we find out where this caravan is, and Yunus starts driving like a madman to get us close to the caravan. And you've seen these state caravans, right? I mean, you've got the limo that the dignitary is in with 8-10 cars on either side, heavily armed. The last thing you want to do is speed up and drive next to them, but that's exactly what Yunus did. And so we stop, and the agent, the security agent in the car, rolls down his window to yell at us that, what are you doing? Are you crazy? And as soon as he does that, Yunus starts laughing. And I'm thinking, this is not my reaction to an armed agent telling me to back off or there's going to be violence in response. And he says something in Turkish to Dr. Kurder, and Dr. Kurder starts laughing as well. And me and Mujib Bhai are looking at each other like, what's this inside joke that's so funny, because I'm afraid we're going to get either shot or arrested or something more serious. And it turns out, going back to my point about relationships, unbeknownst to anybody before those windows were rolled down, that security agent was related to Yunus. They were in-laws. They were family members. And so Yunus yells back at him that we want to meet with the foreign minister. And we have people here from Humanity First, and we want the opportunity to offer our services. Can we meet with him? And the agent says, sure, we can make it happen. Just be ready when I call you. And so something that I could never have predicted, we are in the middle of the most devastated region of Turkey. We pull over on the side of the road, and the foreign minister steps out to take a meeting with us for 10 minutes, where we explain who Humanity First is, what we're trying to accomplish. We shared that we were in Turkey back in 1999 during the earthquake, so we have a long-standing relationship. And lo and behold, we get access to information on what the actual needs are locally. And it becomes clear to us that what Turkey needs right now is the ability to feed the masses. Now remember, it's an earthquake, so supply chain has been disrupted, the restaurants are closed down, businesses are shut down. People still need to eat. And I still remember Mujib laughing. He goes, I don't know why this was so unclear to us earlier, but it's so obvious now. If there's one thing Ahmadis know how to do, it's cook food. Look at every jalsa we've been to, we cook thousands of meals a day to feed tens of thousands of people. And so over the next 12 hours, things moved extremely quickly. And I think we probably called Winham Saab 100 times during the next 12 hours. I'm sure he didn't get much sleep on account of us as well. But approval after approval came. The coordination between Humanity First, UK and USA and Germany came. We quickly coordinated with Madam Namesaab, Dr. Qureshi Saab, across the world, the physicians on site, to ensure that we could get this cooking preparations and the equipment in. We met with the Red Crescent folks locally, building on the relationships that we'd established over the last week. And at the end of the day, we were able to bring in the equipment, set up shop, and start to cook hot meals, not of Pakistani food, but of Turkish food. And again, that was an interesting condition they had, that if you're going to make food for us, it can't be your Pakistani food. We need Turkish food to feed our citizens, and we said we will learn, and learn we did. And by the grace of Allah, these doors of service were opened to us in such a way that when it was all said and done, and we finally closed up shop on the kitchen because it was no longer needed, we ended up having served more than 1.4 million hot meals to Turkish citizens who were devastated by this earthquake. I mean, think about that number, 1.4 million. It's a remarkable feat. And it all began because of, again, going back to this verse that I started my short remarks with, that everyone has a goal which dominates them, vie then with one another in good works. Everyone in this room right now, in these rooms at this conference, is ultimately here for the purpose of service to humanity. In Turkey, it was this fusion of relationships and persistence that opened Allah's doors of mercy and allowed us to serve in a capacity that otherwise simply would not have been possible. So my very simple message is to keep that at the forefront of everything we do. May we recognize our purpose here on earth for the few days that we have here as one committed to that service, and may that goal of service be the one that dominates our lives in everything we do, and may Allah continue to open His doors of mercy to make that possible for us. Jazakumullah.